Scarlet is someone that needs no introductions. Brings a sword to a gunfight, hits like a truck, does single target damage except its AoE, and one of, if not the best reroll target for new players. Unlike Alice or Snow White, Scarlet is powerful right out of the box and only gets more insane with investments. My name is Psyche, and this is a guide on how to play Scarlet. Let's begin. So, interesting fact, I actually rerolled for Scarlet when I first started playing last year November. I didn't understand anything about the game back then, I just heard that she's the best unit in the game, so I rerolled. And boy was that one of the best ideas ever. Because first, I didn't get another copy until 10 months into the game, and second, I didn't realize just how busted she is. But why is she regarded as one of the best units in Nikke? Let's take a look. Scarlet qualifies as an assault rifle user, except she uses a sword. I have no idea how that works, but sure. Her damage comes at a slight cost. The most glaring one is the long reload time while only having 20 shots in one magazine. The other one comes from her skill 1, which after 10 shots have been fired, she will lose 4% HP. And unfortunately, this does not decrease with level, so that 4% is flat across how many levels you put into this. In exchange, Scarlet gets an attack up for 5 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. If you watch the third volume of my series of guides, you will know that attack ups is by general means the best buff in the game. And 5 stacks of that? That's just insane. Note that she cannot kill herself with the skill, at least not with the experience I've had. If she can't lose any more HP, the skill just doesn't trigger. Skill 2, 30% of proccing when attacked. Deals damage back to the attacker, and when Scarlet's own HP dips below 60%, she gets a permanent crit damage increase. Again, from how damage is calculated in this game, the crit damage is pretty minuscule in terms of how good it is. The burst skill. If Scarlet has below 50% HP, she gets a crit rate up for the duration of the full burst. Again, crit damage not very significant, so this part doesn't really matter. Upon cast, she deals damage to every enemy on the screen. Note that unlike units that deal distributed damage like 2B, Scarlet will deal a certain amount of attack to everything. This is way better than the former, and is often used as an emergency screen wipe to delete everything all at once. The burst can even target missiles or certain projectiles. Even if there are no enemies on the field and the boss it just gets hit by itself, the damage is still quite considerable. Now let's talk about which talents are worth leveling and by how much. Just like previous character guides, I'm going to be ranking each character's skill based on 3 levels of priority. For skill 1, it's going to be high priority. It's an attack up and it scales up to 5 times. Need I say more? As it turns out, upgrading the best type of buff in the game is pretty good. Skill 2 gets a low priority. Because of how much worse crit damage is in the game versus attack ups, levels put into this do not get a lot of mileage. But it doesn't hurt to level it to 4, as it's virtually free. The burst skill gets a medium priority. Again, crit rate doesn't really help, but that screen-wide nuke is nothing to scoff at. It already does a decent amount of damage, but putting levels into it is a nice linear investment. Looking at the overall priorities, you can see that Scarlet is one of those units that gets the most use out of her normal attack instead of her 3 skills, meaning she is a lot better at sustaining DPS rather than focusing on bursts. Now it's time to get real nerdy and talk about gearing. Based on what we know, Scarlet has 2 major weaknesses that need to be covered: a long reload time and decaying health. Gear can't really heal Scarlet, but we can do something about the reload speed. Gearing can be different depending on how far into the game you are. For early game players, you can just stick on the resilience cube. Having increased reload speed means getting to her damage state faster, which is never a bad thing, as it covers one of her major weaknesses. However, when you unlock overload gear, that's when things get a little crazy. Scarlet is regarded as one of the first units that you should farm a full set of overload gear for, as having the right lines can make her into an absolute beast. The most important line you're looking for is max ammo capacity. This upgrade mitigates her weakness of having a long reload time. Try to get one of these on all 4 of the overload gear. And if RNG allows it, attack ups, hit rate, and elemental damage bonuses are also good to have. Anything other than charge speed, charge damage, and defense is at least better than nothing, but not really needed. When you have a full set of max ammo lines, Scarlet's magazine should be around 50 to 60 shots, which is quite an upgrade from the base 20. Now, we're not done yet, because Scarlet can actually use the Bastion Cube quite well. When invested, the cube will refund 3 rounds every 10 shots fired. Combined with the increased magazine, this effectively extends her mag size to a staggering 70 to 80. The pain train just truly never stops. Now let's talk about teams. Since Scarlet is quite self-sufficient and does not rely on certain supports, she's also one of the most flexible DPS units to be placed into any team. However, because of her self-harm mechanic, it's advised that you include certain teammates to cover her weaknesses. For accounting for reload speed, you can try using Admi or Pravati to make Scarlet's downtime slower. However, if you already reached the late game, she works quite well as a flex DPS to be placed into any team. If you looked up Scarlet guides online, there are dedicated teams to support Scarlet as the main DPS, but I found running a setup specifically tailored for Scarlet to be not very good. While it is something you can do, I don't think Scarlet's weaknesses are that glaring, and that enough overload gear lines is enough to sustain herself. However, her other weakness does need to be considered. Because of the self-harm mechanic from skill 1, it's advised that you run a healer in the team. Personally, I run the good old leader plus Senti support core, then slot in Scarlet and another DPS alongside Helm. During bosses, I will normally alternate between Scarlet and Helm's burst to heal every other rotation. There are plenty of other combinations possible. The healers that come to mind are Pepper, Rapunzel, Noise, and the Bunny comp. The recent School of Log events also introduced Marciana, as well as the Tia/Naga comp that I also expect to work quite well. However, I found the most success with Helm, as her healing is done based on the unit's attack, and since Scarlet hits like a truck, she is able to regenerate her health in no time at all. Just keep in mind that you should always time Helm's burst when Scarlet actually has ammo, as doing it while she is reloading can be quite awkward. Scarlet has the luxury to be able to be placed in any support core. As long as her HP requirements are met, she can benefit from the majority of support types in the game. Unlike units such as 2B, you don't need other types of buffs like crit damage or elemental damage. One last thing I want to touch upon is the usage of Scarlet's burst. It deals damage to every enemy on the screen, but sometimes it's better to sit on it in anticipation of a certain wave or boss attack. I do this in the blacksmith interception fight, where I wait until the boss launches those bombs before wiping them with Scarlet. It's a small thing to optimize, but there are times when you really want everything off the screen. Overall, the flexibility of Scarlet being able to be placed into any team as a DPS is invaluable, and she's one of those units that's literally good in every level type. Screen-wide damage for all the trash mobs, and high sustained damage for bosses. I know support units generally get more use universally and thus usually gets the highest ratings, but there can be versatility in some DPS units too. Scarlet unquestionably gets a 5 out of 5 rating from me. She's one of the primary targets whenever new players reroll their accounts for the hopes of getting, as her mileage will carry you all the way from Chapter 1 to getting your first overload gear. Other than specialized teams, you'll probably see Scarlet in any of the background footage that I use. She's basically the all-reliable that I always turn to. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this quick guide of Scarlet. She was one of the first on my agenda to make a guide for in the standard pool of characters. And once I had mine built up, it was quite the difference maker. Let me know how well built your Scarlet is. I would like to know just how many shots you got in your Scarlet's magazine. And also, let me know what other character guides you would like to see in the future. I'm currently waiting for Tia's release, though she would have already come out by the time this gets uploaded. So I'll probably do an analysis on the Schoolgirl comp once more information has been released. Thank you for watching, and always remember, have fun with the game.